You're lying in bed at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, your mind racing through every possible scenario of what could go wrong tomorrow, next week, next month. Your chest feels tight. Your stomach churns. You've rehearsed the conversations you need to have at least 50 times, prepared for disasters that haven't happened, built elaborate contingency plans for problems that don't exist yet. You're exhausted, but sleep won't come because your brain won't stop trying to control outcomes that are still invisible, still unformed. And here's what makes it worse. You know, on some level, that all this worrying isn't helping. You know it's draining you, aging you, stealing your peace, but you can't stop because stopping feels dangerous, like letting go of the wheel while driving. What if something terrible happens because you weren't vigilant enough? What if your worry is the only thing keeping catastrophe at bay? But what if I told you that this very act of worrying, this desperate attempt to control everything, is actually the mechanism that keeps you stuck, that prevents the natural flow of life from bringing you what you need? What if your worry isn't protection at all, but a prison you've built with your own thoughts? What if everything you've ever wanted is waiting just on the other side of your need to control it? Jung understood something profound about the human psyche, that our conscious efforts to force outcomes often work directly against the deeper intelligence of the unconscious, the self, that part of you connected to something far greater than your worried ego. Today, you're going to discover why everything falls into place when you stop worrying, and more importantly, how to actually do it without feeling like you're abandoning yourself to chaos. Let me ask you something that might feel uncomfortable at first. When was the last time your worrying actually prevented something bad from happening? Not just made you feel like you were doing something useful, but actually demonstrably changed an outcome. Think about it carefully. You've spent thousands of hours of your life rehearsing disasters, planning for contingencies, trying to think your way around problems before they emerge. And yes, sometimes preparation helps. But how often has the specific worry, the anxious rumination itself, the 3 a.m. spiral of catastrophic thinking, how often has that particular mental activity actually altered reality? The uncomfortable truth is that worry feels like action, but functions like paralysis. It gives you the sensation of doing something important, while actually keeping you locked in the same patterns, the same fears, the same limited outcomes. Jung called this the ego's inflation, the mistaken belief that your conscious mind must control everything for life to work out. But there's a deeper intelligence at work in your life, something he called the self, the totality of your being that includes both conscious and unconscious elements, the part of you that knows things your worried mind cannot access. This self is connected to what you might call God, the divine, the Tao, the natural order of things. And here's the paradox that will change everything if you truly understand it. The more you try to control outcomes through worry and mental force, the more you block this deeper intelligence from guiding you. Your worry is like static that drowns out the signal. Think about the times in your life when things actually fell into place. Really pause and remember them. Maybe you were anxious about a job interview, convinced you'd fail, and then you got the position. Maybe you worried obsessively about a relationship, certain it would end, and then it transformed into something beautiful. Maybe you feared financial ruin, and then an unexpected opportunity appeared. What happened in those moments? Did your worry solve the problem? Or did something else intervene, something you couldn't have planned or predicted, something that emerged from a place beyond your anxious calculations? Jung would say that when you release the ego's desperate grip, when you create space by letting go of control, the self can finally move. The unconscious can send you the dream, the intuition, the synchronicity, the random encounter that changes everything. But this can only happen when you're not clutching so tightly to your limited conscious perspective that you can't see or receive what's trying to reach you. Your soul speaks in whispers, in symbols, in unexpected coincidences, but you'll never hear it if your worried mind is screaming constantly about everything that might go wrong. Here's what nobody tells you about worry. It's actually a form of worship. You're directing all your energy, attention, and faith toward the negative outcomes you fear. You're rehearsing them, visualizing them, making them more real in your psyche than the present moment or positive possibilities. In a very real sense, you're praying to your fears. You're giving them your life force. You're feeding them with your consciousness. And the universe, God, the self, whatever you want to call that creative power that shapes reality, it responds to where you place your attention and energy. Not because it's punishing you, but because that's how consciousness works. You become what you focus on. You create more of what you fear when you cannot stop thinking about it. This is why Jung emphasized the importance of integrating the shadow, of becoming conscious of these patterns. Because what you resist persists, and what you push away in fear grows stronger in the darkness of your unconscious. You might be thinking, but isn't it irresponsible to just stop worrying? Shouldn't I be prepared? Shouldn't I think things through? And yes, absolutely, there's a difference between worry and wise planning. Planning happens in the present moment. You gather information, you make decisions, you take actions. Then you release, you trust. You move forward without needing to know every detail of how things will unfold. Worry, on the other hand, is repetitive, compulsive, future-focused, anxious thinking that doesn't lead to new information or useful action. It's the same thoughts spinning in circles, getting nowhere, just draining your energy and clouding your judgment. You can plan wisely and then let go. You can prepare and then trust. This isn't passivity. This is actually a more mature relationship with reality, one that acknowledges that you are not God, that you cannot control everything, and that's okay. That's actually how it's supposed to be. There's something larger at work, something more intelligent than your worried ego, and learning to cooperate with it rather than fight against it is the secret to a life that flows. Let me share something that might sound mystical, but is actually deeply psychological. When you worry constantly, you're operating from what Jung called the inferior function, the least developed part of your psyche, the part that feels most vulnerable and out of control. For many people, this manifests as catastrophic thinking, as a felt sense that disaster is always imminent. But this isn't intuition. This isn't wisdom. This is actually your psyche's way of trying to protect you by staying hypervigilant, by never relaxing, by assuming the worst so you won't be caught off guard. It's an old survival mechanism that worked when you were a child in an unpredictable environment, or it's inherited from generations of ancestors who lived in genuinely dangerous times. But you're not in that situation anymore, even though your nervous system hasn't gotten the message. Your soul knows this, your self knows this, but your ego, your worried conscious mind, is still operating from outdated programming. And here's what's heartbreaking, that programming is actually preventing you from receiving the very safety, security, and abundance that you're worried about not having. I want you to pause right here for a moment because I need to ask you something important. What's the specific worry that's consuming you right now? What's the fear that wakes you up at night, that lurks in the background of your mind even during good moments? I want you to think about it, to feel it fully without judgment. Because here's what I've learned from years of studying Jung and working with people on their spiritual journeys. Your worry isn't random. It's pointing to something deeper, something your soul is trying to show you. Maybe you're worried about money, but underneath that is a fear of being abandoned or unworthy. Maybe you're worried about your health, but underneath that is an unexplored question about the meaning of your life. Maybe you're worried about what people think of you, but underneath that is a disconnection from your true self. Your worry has a message if you're willing to listen differently. So, I want to invite you to do something vulnerable right now. In the comments below, write this exact phrase, "I'm releasing my need to control," And if you feel comfortable, share what you're releasing. Don't just think it, write it. There's something powerful about naming what we're holding on to and declaring our intention to let it go. And when you write it, you're not just helping yourself. You're creating a field of permission for everyone else who reads your comment, everyone else who's struggling with the same fear but feels alone in it. We heal in community. We transform together. So take that step right now. Write, "I'm releasing my need to control," and share what that means for you. This simple act might be the turning point you've been waiting for. Now let's go deeper into why letting go actually works. Jung discovered something remarkable through his study of alchemy, mythology, and his own inner work. He found that the psyche has a natural drive toward wholeness, toward what he called individuation. This is the process of becoming who you truly are, of integrating all the split-off parts of yourself, of aligning your conscious ego with the deeper self. But here's the crucial point. This process cannot be forced. You cannot muscle your way into wholeness. You cannot worry yourself into transformation. In fact, the more you try to control this process with your conscious will, the more you interfere with it. It's like trying to force a flower to bloom by pulling its petals open. You'll destroy it. The flower blooms naturally when conditions are right, when it's received enough sun and water and nutrients. Your life is the same way. There are conditions that support flowering and conditions that prevent it. Worry is a condition that prevents it. Trust is a condition that supports it. Letting go creates the space for the natural unfolding that your soul is trying to orchestrate. Think about water for a moment. Water doesn't struggle to flow. It doesn't worry about whether it will reach the ocean. It simply follows the path of least resistance, moving around obstacles, wearing down barriers over time, always finding its way. This is the Tao, the natural way, the way of the self. But your ego, your worried mind, it's like trying to make water flow uphill. It's exhausting, it's futile, and it separates you from the natural intelligence that already knows how to guide you home. Jung understood this from both Eastern and Western mystical traditions. There's a power in surrender that the ego mistakes for weakness. But true surrender isn't giving up, it's giving over. It's transferring your trust from your limited, worried mind to the greater intelligence of life itself, of God, of the self. And when you do this, when you really do it, not as a concept but as a lived experience, everything begins to shift. Here's something that might shock you. Your best ideas, your most important insights, your most creative solutions, they never came from worrying. They came when you were in the shower, on a walk, just waking up, doing something completely unrelated to the problem you were trying to solve. They emerged from the unconscious, when your conscious mind finally got out of the way. This is the creative power that Jung spent his life studying and teaching about. The unconscious isn't just a dumping ground for repressed fears and forgotten memories. It's also the source of creativity, wisdom, and guidance. It's connected to what he called the collective unconscious, the shared reservoir of human experience and archetypal knowledge that exists beyond your individual mind. When you stop worrying, when you create silence and space, this deeper wisdom can finally reach you. But you have to stop the static. You have to turn down the volume on the worried commentary that never stops running in your head. Let me tell you what happens in your body when you worry constantly. Your nervous system goes into fight or flight mode. Your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Your digestion shuts down because you're in perceived danger. Your immune system weakens because your body is prioritizing immediate survival over long-term health. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. You're literally aging faster, wearing yourself out from the inside, all because of thoughts about things that haven't happened and might never happen. This is what chronic worry does to you physically. But here's what's even more important. This state of physiological stress actually impairs the parts of your brain responsible for creativity, problem-solving, and wise decision-making. When you're in fight or flight, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that can see the big picture and think strategically, it goes offline. You literally cannot access your wisest self when you're in a state of chronic worry. You become reactive, impulsive, tunnel-visioned. You make decisions from fear rather than wisdom, and then you create more problems to worry about, perpetuating the cycle. This is the hell that worry creates, and most people don't even realize they're in it because it's been their normal state for so long. But when you begin to release worry, when you practice letting go, something remarkable happens in your body and brain. Your nervous system shifts into what's called rest and digest mode, or the parasympathetic state. Your body begins to heal. Your digestion improves. Your immune system strengthens. Your heart rate slows and becomes more variable, which is actually a sign of health and resilience. Your breathing deepens naturally. The prefrontal cortex comes back online, giving you access to your highest cognitive abilities. You can suddenly see solutions you couldn't see before. You have insights that seemed impossible when you were in the grip of anxiety. This isn't just psychological, it's physiological. Your body knows how to heal, how to thrive, how to guide you, but only when you give it permission, by releasing the constant stress response that worry triggers. This is the biological basis for why everything falls into place when you stop worrying. You're literally accessing different neural networks, different states of consciousness, different possibilities. If you're finding value in this perspective, if something is shifting for you as you listen to these words, I want to invite you to do two things that will help this message reach more people who need it. First, click the like button right now. I know it seems like a small thing, but it tells the algorithm that this content matters, that it should be shared with others who are struggling with worry and control. Your click might be the reason someone else discovers this video at exactly the moment they need it. Second, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because we're building a community of people who are committed to going deeper, to understanding themselves through a Jungian and spiritual lens, to breaking free from the patterns that keep us stuck. This isn't just about consuming content. It's about being part of a movement of consciousness, a collective awakening to a different way of being. So click like, click subscribe, and let's continue this journey together. The world needs more people who are willing to release control and trust the deeper intelligence of life. Now let's talk about what actually happens when you stop worrying, when you truly let go of the need to control outcomes. First, there's often a period of discomfort, sometimes even panic. Because worry has been your security blanket, your false sense of control, and removing it can feel like you're naked and vulnerable to the world. Jung would call this the encounter with the void, with the unknown. It's where the ego meets its limitations and has to surrender to something greater. This is a spiritual initiation, a death of the old way of being so that something new can be born. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it requires courage. But on the other side of this discomfort is a freedom you cannot imagine while you're still clutching your worry like a life raft. What you discover is that you don't fall apart when you stop worrying. You don't become irresponsible or reckless. Instead, you become more present. You become more responsive rather than reactive. You develop what Jung called a religious attitude toward life, not religious in the sense of belonging to a particular faith, though it can include that, but religious in the sense of careful attention, reverence, connection to something sacred and meaningful beyond the ego's small concerns. When you release worry, you begin to notice synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that Jung spent years studying and writing about. You think of someone, and they call. You need information, and a book falls open to the exact page. You're struggling with a decision, and a stranger says something that gives you clarity. These aren't random occurrences. They're evidence of the underlying connectedness of all things. of the way consciousness and reality interpenetrate each other. But you only notice synchronicities when you're present, when you're paying attention, when you're not lost in the fog of anxious rumination. Worry blinds you to the signs, the guidance, the help that's always available. Letting go opens your eyes. Suddenly you realize you're not alone in this. You're not isolated and unprotected. There's an intelligence, a benevolence, a creative force that's been trying to reach you all along, and you couldn't hear it because your worry was too loud. Here's the ultimate truth that will set you free if you can really absorb it. You are not meant to figure everything out with your conscious mind. You are not meant to control all outcomes. You are not meant to protect yourself from all possible pain. You are meant to participate in life, to show up fully, to do your part, and then to trust that there's a larger pattern, a deeper purpose, a divine choreography that you're part of but cannot see in its entirety. Jung discovered this through his own breakdown and breakthrough, his confrontation with the unconscious that nearly destroyed him but ultimately led to his greatest insights. He learned to dialogue with the unconscious, to honor its wisdom, to surrender his ego's need to be in charge. And this is what he offers you through his work. A path to wholeness that doesn't require you to have all the answers, to control all outcomes, to worry yourself into an early grave. Instead, it asks you to develop a relationship with the unknown, with the unconscious, with God, with the self, to learn to listen rather than demand, to receive rather than force, to trust rather than control. Everything falls into place when you stop worrying, because worry is the obstacle. Worry is the dam that blocks the flow. Worry is the cloud that obscures the sun. The sun is always shining. The flow is always flowing. The intelligence is always guiding, but you have to get out of the way. You have to release your grip. You have to trust that you are held by something far greater than your small, worried self. This isn't naive optimism. This isn't spiritual bypassing. This is actually the most mature, most realistic way to engage with life, because it acknowledges the truth. You cannot control most of what happens, but you can control how you respond, where you place your attention, and whether you choose to trust or to fear. So today, right now, I want you to make a decision. Not a decision to never worry again, because that's not realistic and would just become another thing to worry about, but a decision to begin practicing release. When you notice worry arising, and you will notice it because awareness is the first step instead of diving into the stream of anxious thoughts, pause, take a breath, say to yourself, either out loud or internally, I release this to the wisdom that's greater than me. I trust that I am guided. I trust that I am held. I trust that everything is unfolding as it should. And then, this is important, return to the present moment. Return to what's actually happening right now, not the future scenarios your mind is creating. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Anchor yourself in the reality of this moment, which is usually much calmer and safer than the catastrophic futures your worry projects. This is a practice, which means it takes repetition, patience, and self-compassion. You will forget. You will fall back into worry. You will have moments of panic when letting go feels impossible. That's okay. That's part of the process. Jung said that integration is not a straight line but a spiral, returning again and again to the same issues but from a higher vantage point each time. Each time you choose to release, even for a moment, you're rewiring your brain, shifting your nervous system, opening to a new way of being. And over time, slowly but surely, you'll notice that things do fall into place. The right people appear. The opportunities emerge. The problems solve themselves in ways you never could have orchestrated. Your health improves. Your relationships deepen. Your creativity flows. Not because you worried less, but because you worried less. Because you created space for the deeper intelligence to work through you and for you. This is the paradox of letting go. By releasing control, you gain a different kind of power. The power that comes from alignment with the Tao, with the self, with God. You stop fighting reality and start dancing with it. You stop drowning in the river and start floating, letting the current carry you where you need to go. You discover that the universe is not hostile or indifferent, but deeply intelligent and fundamentally benevolent, orchestrating a story far more beautiful than anything your worried mind could have planned. Everything falls into place when you stop worrying, because worry was never the glue holding your life together. Love is the glue. Trust is the glue. The divine pattern is the glue. And it's been there all along, waiting for you to stop struggling long enough to feel it, to see it, to surrender into it. This is your invitation. This is your moment. Let go and watch what happens. Your soul has been waiting for this. God has been waiting for this. And the life you've always wanted is waiting on the other side of your willingness to release the worry that's been keeping it at bay. Everything falls into place not because you make it happen, but because you finally allow it to happen. Trust that, live that, and be free.